Thank you, Macarena, and good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen and let's start. Okay, let me just present it, and there we go. So for today, we are going to be just reviewing the hierarchy security on CRM Dynamics 365. There is some functionalities that probably most of you are not using at the moment, at least in the security side. So I wanted to bring this topic today. It's not technical, but it's something that I think that everybody needs to know just to understand what are the possibilities in terms of security in CRM. By default, I mean, usually the people just use the roles, the security profiles, or the teams, but there are some other functionalities that are available there and probably could help you with some functionalities or with some needs that sometimes probably you identify. So this is one of these functionalities, and that's why I wanted to include in this web of webinars. Okay, the hierarchy security model is an extension to the existing Microsoft Dynamics security models that use business unit security roles, sharing, and teams. I mean, the idea is that this is not going to replace the traditional model. The traditional security model is like a complement. And the idea is that that's why it's important to understand all the points on all the actors in the equation. So as probably you already know, the sharing has a web of possibilities with roles, with business units, but each of these elements has a specific area or a specific scope. So that's why I wanted to include this topic. The hierarchical security offers a more granular access to the records for an organization and helps to bring the maintenance costs down. So what it means, if you understand and configure the model with this hierarchical model, hierarchy security model, you will be able to reduce the effort to maintain the security configured in your CRM. In complex scenarios, you can start with creating several business units and then add the hierarchy security. So it's something that you could define and implement later. I mean, it's not something that you need to include at the beginning. Probably you could start with business units, but later the idea is that you could start introducing this additional configuration. Okay. Basically, we are going to be covering 6 topics, some general concepts. So what is the manager hierarchy? What is the position hierarchy? How to configure, how to set up the hierarchy security. Basically, it's the same procedure for both models, but I want to explain you in detail. And how to set up the manager and the position hierarchy. So, I mean, the first thing is that probably you need to activate it, but then you need to configure the model. And I want to mention some performance consideration because sometimes the people start using the model and later identify that the CRM could present some delays or some specific situations. So the idea is that I want to highlight that performance considerations. Okay, so let's start. Some general considerations or some general concepts. There are 2 security models that can be used for hierarchies. The first one is the manager hierarchy, and the second one is the position hierarchy. With the manager hierarchy, a manager must be within the same business unit as the report, or the parent business unit of the report's business unit to have access to the report data. So what it means is that basically the manager model just works for business units. I mean, if you have a business units model implemented, that could be a good model because is going to extend that functionality. Uh, However, the position hierarchy allows data access across business units. If you are a financial organization, you may prefer the manager hierarchy model. So what I was mentioning is that if you have a model, a security model based on business units, probably it's a good idea continue with the manager hierarchy. But if not, I mean, if you have a model based on not on business units, for example, if you wanna implement a customer service model or a customer service organization and want the managers to access the service cases handled in different business units, the position hierarchy may work better. I will be explaining this in detail. I mean, I'm going to go deep in each model, but the idea is that with managers, you could configure the manager of each people, and the manager is going to be able to see the information that is related to the people that they are handled. And in the position hierarchy model, it's more like the name saying based on the position. It doesn't care about the manager or the business unit. It's more based on the position. So that's the difference, and I will be explaining that with the diagram later. Um, the manager hierarchy security model is based on the manager management chain on direct reporting structure. What it means, each user has configured a manager or could be configured a manager, and that manager is going to be the person that is going to be able to see the information of you. Okay, so I mean, if I have a person and that person is the manager of 3 other people, the manager is going to be able to see the information of that people. Okay, so that's something. I mean, in the traditional model, you always configure the roles like user, like business unit, like organization. But in this case, you are going to be able to see that you could define the configuration. Give me a second. ¿Lo paga? No, pero llévatelo. Sorry about that. So the manager, with the security model, the managers can access the data that their report has access to. This is a read-only access, but it's something that you could do and that you could use, as an extension of the traditional model. With the manager hierarchy security model, a manager has access to the records owned by the users or by the team that a user is member of. So what it means, if I am the manager, I'm going to be able to see the information of all the people that I am managing and all the teams that I'm managing too. Even that if I am not the manager, but I am the manager of the team, I'm going to be able to see that information. Okay. And additionally, the records that are directly shared with the user of the team that a user is member of. So probably there are some records that my people is not the owner, but they receive the share record. So I'm going to be able to see that information too. Okay. This is something important. In addition to the manager hierarchy security model, a manager must have at least the user level read privilege of an entity. So what it means is that if one of if I am the manager of a person and that person have access to quotes, for example, if I want to see his information, at least I should have the read privilege on the quote entity. Okay, so if you don't have in your roles, if you don't have access to the quotes, you are not going to see the information, even that if you have the hierarchy security configured. Okay, so that's why it's important to configure the roles in additional way. Okay, let's see this example. I don't want to just basically we have a CEO and he can read and update. I mean, with the manager hierarchy, he could read and update the VP of sales data and the VP of service data. So I have the CEO here, and I have the VP here, and I have the other VP here. So the CEO is able to read and modify the information and modify the records of the VP's users. Okay. However, the CEO can only read the information of the sales manager. So as you can see here, the sales manager are people that are in charge of the VP, but the CEO is able to read the information, but it's not going to be able to modify that information. It's just read-only access, okay? The CEO has access of modify and read information in the first level, but for the second level is going to be just read-only, okay? And as well of the sales support data. Okay, so actually the CEO could go down to the support and he could go down to the sales team, but it's going to be read-only information. Okay, read-only access. Okay, the limit of amount of data accessible by the manager will be the div. I will be explaining that. The div is a configuration that we need to do to define how many levels he could go deep. Okay, for example, if the div is set to number 2, the CEO can see the data of the VP sales, the VP of services, and the sales and service manager. So it's going to be until here. But the CEO doesn't see the sales data of the support data. So I could configure how many levels each person could go deep. And it's important to restrict the levels that that person are going to be just reviewing, because depends of that. It's going to affect the performance of the CRM. So that's something that I have to keep in mind. And I just need to, I should activate this just in case that I really need it. It's not something to, it's something that must be reviewed on detail before activating. It's something that works, of course, but it's something that demands a lot of resources. Okay, so basically the manager hierarchy is just configure the manager of each person, and after that activate the model to define what do I want. Okay. The next model is the position hierarchy. The position hierarchy is not based on the direct reporting structure like the manager hierarchy. A user doesn't have to be or to have an actual manager of another user to access user data. As an administrator, you will define various job positions in the organization, and later you will configure the model, and after that you will see the information based on your position. So basically this model just depend on the position, but probably in both scenarios, the key of this configuration is going to be maintain that information updated, okay? Because there are some companies that the managers change a lot, the position change a lot. So if you have one of that companies, probably this model is going to be a challenge for you, because you need to have all the information updated. Totally updated. Okay. So to illustrate the concept of the direct ancestor path, let's look at the diagram below. The sales manager position, that is this guy, is going to have access to the sales data. However, it doesn't have access to the support data, even that they are in the same level. But when I configure the positions, I could define sales manager and service manager, or VP service or VP sales, and depends of that on that position, I could define the access that that person is going to have. Something that you have to keep in mind is that it's not possible to configure many positions to one user. Okay, so the user is going to have one position, and based on that position, the CRM is going to restrict the information that is going to be enabled for that person. Okay. So the service manager position, it doesn't have access to the sales data. The same way, the service manager is not going to have access to that information. And like in the manager hierarchy, you can limit the amount of data accessible by higher position with the div. So in that configuration, you are going to have the div field available. I will be showing you that later. The div will limit how many levels div a higher position has regional access. So what it means is that the sales manager can read the positions below, and I could configure how many levels are going to be able to read the information. I mean, how many levels could go div. Okay. Um, and for example, if the div is set on 3, the COO position can see the data of all way down from the VP of the services position to the sales support position. So uh, it is a good way to work. And basically, you want to just separate the information is something that is going to work. Even if you don't have business units, that's a good way to start. But again, you need to have all the elements in place. I mean, you need to understand the roles, you need to understand the business units, and you need to understand the teams. And after that, you need to understand this model. Okay. Um, with the position hierarchy security, a user at the higher position has access to the records owned by a lower position user or by the team. It's the same that the manager hierarchy. I mean, you could have access to the records that the people is like the owner, or is going to be related in a team that is going to be the owner of the record. Okay. And the same, you need to have access to read the records in that entity. Okay, so this is the same that I already just mentioned. Okay, so now how to configure this? To set the security hierarchy, you must have an administrator security role, of course. You need to be an administrator. And you need to go to hierarchy security. I mean, the hierarchy security is disabled by default. So if you want to enable, you need to go to settings, security. And after that, select the hierarchy security and select enable. Okay. After you have enabled the hierarchy model, choose the specific model that you want to use and start configuring. Let's see that on the CRM directly. So on the CRM, you need to go just right here in advanced settings. And when you enter to advanced settings, you will see the hierarchy security here. You need to select that option. As I mentioned in the PPT, the option is going to be disabled by default. Okay, so you could enable that. And after that, you need to define what is the model that you want to use. So what it means is that if you select manager hierarchy and you select configure, the CRM is going to redirect you to the user's to the user entity. And let's say, for example, let's select anybody. Select Eddie. Let me enter to Eddie. And here on the summary, I think that is in the summary. Yes. So here you will see two fields, basically the manager field and the position field. So for defining manager, let's say that I'm going to say that Hector is going to be the manager for Eddie. And I just need to save it. Okay. I just need to save, and I need to configure all the managers for all users. I mean, probably you could export an Excel file um, and update that information, because one by one is going to be difficult. But at the end, you need to configure that manager, that manager, and later you could define the hierarchy div. That is something that I already explained you, and define how many levels you could go deep on the data. So by default, it's going to be 3. I recommend you don't increase much this. Try to keep it in 3 or 2 or something like that, but shouldn't be like 5 or something like that. It's going to affect your performance, and I really don't recommend you that. Additionally, by default, all the entities are going to be included in the model. So what it means is that by default, if one of your people has access to the cases, you're going to have access to. But I could define that there are some entities that I don't want to include in this model. For example, if I don't want to allow the manager to see the notes or some specific information that for some reason I don't want to share or I don't want to log the note. I could exclude that information. So I could select the entity and I just exclude the table, exclude the entity of the model. Okay. Okay. So as I just explained you here, uh, just activate this is quite simple. Just go to settings, security, and just select the hierarchy security that you want to use. You just need to enable and just need to select the model and it's going to be activated. Um, Additionally, it's important to configure the deep. As I mentioned, it's something that is going to allow you to identify how many levels you could go deep. Um, and additionally, uh, if you want to configure the manager hierarchy, it's easy. Just go to the users and just select the manager field and identify that person that is the manager of the user. Okay. If you're ready, but if you want to configure the positions, the first step is configure the positions that you are going to be using because it's not going to be by default. What it means is that if you select custom position hierarchy and you select configure, you will be redirected to an entity with the name active positions, basically positions, and you need to define the levels. Okay, let me delete this and let me just do it with you. Okay, probably. Okay, so let's create one. Let's say that this one is going to be the CEO and is going to be without parent position because it's the top one. Probably after that is going to be the directors. It depends of the model that you have in your company. So just define the model that applies to your company. If you have many different model, I mean, if you have an structure like with two different, I mean, what, like this one, for example, if you have a sales manager and a service manager and something like that, you need to configure that here. You need to define all positions. I just want to define the minimum one for the exercise. So I have the CEO, the directors, probably some managers, and at the end, probably I am going to have some like agent or something like that. Something real simple, but it depends of the structure that you have in your company. Okay, so you need to configure here the positions and you need to configure the parent positions. Probably it's a good idea to find a description. I mean, I recommend you define the description. And later you could relate the users that are in each position. Okay, so you could configure the users here. That is probably the easiest way. The other one will be just go to the user. Probably let me see on the users. And if you select another user and you go to summary, and if you go to manager, you will see here an additional field with the position name. So if you select the position, all the positions that we already configured there are going to appear here. So you just need to define, okay, this person is in this position or some other position. But as I mentioned, it's something that is going to be, I mean, the success of this configuration is going to be how Dave is going to have your information. So it's something really difficult, try to have everything updated. I mean, it's not difficult just to find the procedure and do it. But sometimes in some company, there are some like positions that change a lot, or some managers that change a lot. So it's something that you need to keep in mind if you want to start implementing this model. Okay. So if you have already created positions as we did before, you can also tag the user with a particular position in the position hierarchy. So you need to define a manager and probably you need to define the position. I mean, if you are going to use the position model, you don't need to select the manager, but always it's a good idea, try to have all information as much as possible. I mean, complete it up as much as possible. Okay, in the following example, the salesperson report to the sales manager. So it's just an example, and I don't know why we didn't configure the names. It's probably is going to be easier to understand if I have people here. But let's say that this one is Jorge and the manager is going to be a different person. So I could have it, the manager here, and I could define the position that that person is going to have. Okay. Additionally, if I just select the field, like the position that we did before, I could identify the position that I could have it. And it's something that I just need to select and I need to have it updated. It's information that you could update with a template, with an Excel template. You could export it, update it massively, and after that, import it again, and that's it. It's going to be really quick. But the key is going to be try to have different names. I mean, try to don't create positions with the same name that because it's going to be an issue for sure. Okay, to change a position of the users, you could go directly and click in the three dots icon and choose a different position. So in the same way, you could just select the person and manage roles, join to the team, change business unit, change manager, and an option with change position is going to be there. So if you want to change that position, you just need to select the user and select and change position, and it's going to be directly available there. So it's something that is going to make the things easier and it's really quick. Okay. 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 So basically, those are the things that I want to mention. The configuration is not too complex, but it's something that you need to try to think better. I mean, try to think in the best possible way before I start using. As I mentioned, here in security, you are going to find the users, the security roles, the field security profiles, the teams, and the business unit. That is the traditional model. Here you could configure the position as well. But I mean, you already have a group of elements, and this one is an additional one, but it's going to be an extension of the previous one. So if you want to define a really good security model, probably something that is going to be involving all these elements. Sometimes, and most of the companies don't start using the hierarchy security at the beginning. So they define that configuration later and that they implement that configuration later. But it's something that you really need to keep in mind if you want to have a really good model. Okay, there are some performance considerations that I want to highlight. Uh, Keep the effective hierarchy security to 50 users or less under a manager or a position. So what it means, try to don't create a really complex tree. Try to have a really simple model. Your hierarchy may have more than 50 users under a manager position, but you can use the deep settings to reduce the number of levels for read only. I mean, probably in your company, your structure is very complex and you're going to have, I don't know, 200 people, but try to configure the deep in a way that when a person start going deep, they'll have to have access to more than 50 users. If you don't follow this recommendation, probably you're going to have some performance issues. So that's why Microsoft recommend that. It's not my recommendation. It's something that Microsoft recommend. I mean, try to keep the model simple and try to have a model with as much 50 users. I mean, no more than that. At least try to reduce or try to configure or try to control that with the deep field. Use hierarchy security models in conjunction with other existing security models. Uh, uh, as I was explaining, it's a model that is going to be like an extension of the other models. So it's not something that you could just start using alone. It's something that is going to be like a conjunction. Try to don't create or avoid creating a large number of business units. That always is going to be an issue later. Probably at the beginning is going to be your ideal model because you want to have everything separated. But at the end of the day, the idea of a CRM is not separate everything. It's the opposite one. The opposite one is try to put everything together, try to see the information together, and try to have an analysis of the company in a really easy way. So avoid create a large number of business units. Instead of create fewer business units and add hierarchy security. So that's the recommendation. Don't create a lot of business units. Try to create just fewer business units and later add a hierarchy security model with managers or with positions. And that is going to have a better result for you. So those are their performance considerations. And basically, as I mentioned, those are the recommendations that Microsoft present. Okay, so well, that this is not a very large topic. Basically, this is a small one. I want to share with you this instance. It's an instance that you could use it for try yourself. It's an instance that you could move that is available for you. So try to go to this instance, try to try it by yourself. And if you have any questions, you could send me an email and send me all your questions, and I will be trying to solve everything that you send me. And if you need anything related to the CRM, probably send me an email and I will be helping you. Okay, so that's all for today. As I mentioned, it's not a large topic, but it's something that I think that is really important to have in mind and that I know because there are some implementations that sometimes get some complexity that could be solved with these things or with this kind of things. Okay, so that's why I want to include this topic in the sessions. Okay, so thanks everyone for your time and have a great day.